I've come up with a list. This list includes the top players on the Memphis Grizzlies at a very important category to win the NBA championship. Top 5 players. It doesn't have John Morant. It doesn't have Jaren Jackson Jr. It doesn't have Zach Edey. What could that be? This is an important list, by the way. Let's talk about it. Coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies each and every single day, especially on this Thursday episode of Locked On Grizzlies. We got a lot to talk about today, but before we get into the who, what, when, where, we got to talk about the why for today's episode, because today we're going to talk about the top 5 current shooters on the Memphis Grizzlies, and we're going to do a little bit more. But why is this an important conversation? Why is this an important conversation now? Why is it something we need to dive into? Well, it's simple for me. Number one, in today's NBA, shooting is just a very important category in order to be able to compete for a championship, let alone win one. Number two, if you've been following the Memphis Grizzlies a long time, you know that shooting, historically speaking, has sometimes been what has held this team back from reaching, I guess you would say, another level. You could point to the grit and grind era. You could point to the early era of this team, the next gen squad. 2021-22 was not a great shooting team. 2022-2023, both teams number 2 seeds. Neither team was rather feared, as a 3-point shooting team. In fact, it wasn't until this past season where the Grizzlies, this was after the Grizzlies pretty much talk about doubling, quadrupling, and tripling down on youth. The Grizzlies doubled, quadrupled, and tripled down on finding shooters. Because that first batch was the same batch after the 2021-22 season when they drafted Jake LaRavia, David Roddy, Kennedy Chandler, Vince Williams. You remember at that time, all of these guys were brought in, and the idea was, go look at their college numbers. They all were plush 3-point shooters in college. They're going to be players who can help this team, shoot the 3-point ball much better. That did not really turn out to be the case overall. And the Grizzlies had to go back to the well. They had to go back to the well and say, hey, let's go find some other guys. Then they drafted Jalen Wells. And they drafted Cam Spencer. And then they started to do some other things on the roster as well to kind of shore up the 3-point shooting. And what you saw this past season was a team that was one of the better shooting teams in the league. They were 11th in NBA and made 3-pointers. They were also 11th in NBA in 3-point field goal percentage. This is a team that hasn't finished past, I believe 17 was the exact number. Have not finished past 17 in 3-point field goal percentage. You got to go back to, I believe it was 2006, 2007. But they did that just last season. The season before that, put it in perspective, the Grizzlies were 29th in 3-point shooting. So just in 1 year, they went from 29th to 11th. Now, what you see a lot of times over the course of the NBA, and I'm sure some fans were thinking, they're like, man, I wish we could have been shooting the ball like this a couple years ago when we were in the playoffs going against Golden State Warriors and we were missing all those shots and we were in those ugly games where we struggled to score 85 to 90 points. I wish we could have shot like this when we were playing Los Angeles Lakers when they basically was sagging off of our wing, Dylan Brooks, forcing him to shoot the ball and other guys weren't getting open and things like that. I wish we could have shot the ball like that then. But the Grizzlies did last season. And here's the question, because here's why this whole thing is relevant. Last season, the Grizzlies were such a good shooting team, right? Really good shooting team. The top 2 shooters are gone. Desmond Bane, traded. Luke Kennard went unsigned in free agency. Luke Kennard move was completely expected. Completely expected. We talked about it here on the show as well. And you can say the Desmond Bane move may not have been expected right here at this moment, but it was expected to. They weren't going to keep Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr. for the next 5 years. I could tell you that. And we know Ja wasn't going anywhere, despite whatever whoever wants to say on the outside looking in. And you should know that Jaren wasn't going anywhere as well, based on the way that we've kind of talked about how Memphis values him leading up to his contract. We dived in on it over and over and over. Now, with that being said, let's get into some names because we got to talk about the top 5 shooters on the Memphis Grizzlies. These are players who are going to be very important potentially if the Grizzlies want to have a strong shooting season, which in turn, with the idea that the defense is improved, right? Because that's the other reason why shooting is important. Then we're going to get into these names. But you did all this investing this offseason, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, to go along with Jalen Wells potentially in the starting lineup. You draft Cedric Coward, defensive-minded guy. Javon Small, defensive-minded guy. Jamon Meshack, really a defensive-minded guy. You draft these defenders. You go get a Jock Landale, right? Interior guy who's known as, a solid defender as well. These moves were made in order to shore up this defense and basically say, look, the defensive problems that we've had in the past, we don't want to have anymore. With that being said, here's our list of our top 5. We're going to get into the just 2 guys in the first segment, and then in the next couple segments, we're going to kind of break it up a little bit. But in the first segment, we're going to talk about the elite shooters on this roster. Now, this is an open room. You guys know how we roll on Locked On Grizzlies. If anybody has anything to say, go to YouTube, go in the comment section. Let me know what your list looks like, because this is my list. This is what I've come up with. And the first 2 names that I'm going to talk about are the guys I deem the only quote-unquote elite shooters on the roster. What's an elite shooter to me? An elite shooter is a guy who shoots the ball very accurately from three-point range. This is a player, when he comes into a game, NBA teams automatically say, do not leave him open. They are scared of the idea of this player getting open three-point shots and making you pay and potentially going off from three-point range. 2 guys. Consistency come to mind when these names as well. Number 1 on my list is Ty Jerome. I could spend the rest of this segment solely talking about Ty Jerome because that's how important he's going to be to the Memphis Grizzlies from a shooting standpoint. If you're not new here, shout out to the everydayers. You've heard me in the past not be the biggest fan of the Grizzlies signing Ty Jerome. But the one area where I said I really like this move, in addition to the financial part of it, is the fact that this is a guy who is a really, really plus three-point shooter. We're talking about a player who shot over 43% from the three-point line this past season, and on 3 attempts per game as well. And while last season was overall a breakout year for Ty Jerome, right? Like, this was his breakout NBA season where he went from a fringe rotation player, guy finding his way, to a 6-man of the year candidate. While that was his breakout season overall, it was a breakout season because of what he put out there in totality. But if you go over the course of his career, Ty Jerome was never a bad three-point shooter. Never. 38% career three-point shooting. So that is the one area of his game that I think you can lock it in. You can put it in permanent marker. He's going to be good at this. And it's important because we talked about what you lost with Desmond Bane. We talked about what you lost with Luke Kennard. You lose the volume and the accuracy with Desmond Bane. You know that Des is going to get up 6-7 3-point attempts, and he's going to make a decent amount of it. And with Luke Kennard, you lose the accuracy, right? He might not get up as many. I know that used to be a problem. Some people say, oh, Luke Kennard's not shooting the ball, or whatever the case may be. But when he did, he made a whole bunch of them. And there's not many guys in the league who can make them at the clip that he can. But you know who could give him a run for his money? It's this Ty Jerome guy. Ty Jerome is a very accurate shooter. He can shoot on the ball. He can shoot off the ball. Off the dribble, excuse me. He can shoot, catch and shoot. I like his ability as a shooter overall. Number 2 on the list, Cam Spencer. Cam Spencer is on here because of what I call the eye test, right? This is where beat writer Damichael Cole is speaking, because I've seen Cam Spencer with my own eyes at practice, shoot the ball as well as anyone I've seen shoot it around here with the Grizzlies. Have we seen it in the games yet? Mm-mm. We've seen it in the G League. We saw it, a little bit in that game against the Suns, a couple games here and there. We've seen it in the Summer League, but we haven't seen it in a regular season NBA rotation. Cam Spencer, with the volume, is a 40% three-point shooter at the NBA level. No doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind. I'm telling you, when this guy shoots in practice, I really wish we could have seen more of him in those shooting competitions with a guy like Luke Kennard and Desmond Bane, because you can make an argument that from an accuracy standpoint, he might be able to top Ty Jerome. He might be the top overall shooter on this roster with Ty Jerome. But the reason that Ty Jerome is number one right now, because we just don't know if Cam Spencer is going to play. We don't. We don't know how much he's going to play. We don't know when he's going to play. And it's a question. It's a question. And look, the guard rotation is stacked. It is, again, a reason why Jemiah Mashack, for example, didn't get a two-way spot, because they got a bunch of guards. The Grizzlies have a bunch of guards, so many guards, where a guy like Cam Spencer, who they just boosted up from a two-way contract to a standard contract, it's not even guaranteed he's going to be in the rotation. And quite frankly, it's going to be hard for him to crack the rotation. But if he does, his shooting, Cam Spencer's ability to get him up from three-point range accurately will be a difference maker. 100%. I'm telling you, when I see this guy shoot the ball at practice, butter. It's what we, in my neighborhood growing up, we used to call it butter, because it's I mean, when it hits the bottom of the nets, it's like butter rolling around in a skillet. And it's smooth like that. This guy is one of the better shooters I've seen in person, and I think it's very translatable, right? We've seen it in G League, we've seen it in practice, we've seen it in preseason games and things like that. Now he's just got to do it consistently in NBA games, and I think that will happen if Cam Spencer gets a bigger opportunity. But we got to talk about some more shooters on the Grizzlies roster. Those aren't the only two. They have some shooters, what I call the needed shooters. These are the guys you're going to really need to knock down shots in order for the Grizzlies to be at their best. These are also some pretty good shooters as well. We're going to talk about those guys coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we get into that, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with the 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost, perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game, whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day. 5 Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. So make sure you go take advantage of this, because look, I've been out on the golf course for a little bit, and I haven't really made too many wild shots, but I can get out there and I can make a birdie or two. You put me on the green, you never know what I can come up with. But golf is all about times with good people and good flavors. The grape ginger lime flavor of 5 Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse to go to without leaving the course or chasing down the Bev card. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament, and this ends October 31st, 2025. Make sure you go take advantage of the opportunity now over at 5 Hour Energy. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies, and now we got to talk about what I feel are probably the most important shooters on the Grizzlies roster. These are the guys that you're going to see more in the games where you say, oh, please make that shot. Please we need a three right now. Give it to this guy. Give it to this guy. Give it to this guy. These are these type guys. Because with all due respect to Ty Jerome and even Cam Spencer, I don't see either of them being in closing lineups on the regular. Like, I think there will be games that'll be Ty Jerome will be in the closing lineups, but on a game-to-game basis, when the game's on the line and you're down 3 and it's 2 minutes left, those two guys, your two most elite shooters, won't be the guys who will be in the game, which kind of factors into where the Grizzlies will be ranked in terms of three-point shooting, right? Like most teams, their best shooters are the guys who will be in the game in those situations. In the case of the Grizzlies, they probably won't. So that kind of docks you a little bit in terms of who are the best three-point shooting teams in the league. But these guys right here that we're about to talk about, if these guys take a leap or they have strong three-point shooting seasons, it really, really impacts the trajectory of this team. The number 3 shooter on the Grizzlies for me right now is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Number 1, because he's been there, done that. That's easy, right? Won a championship with the Lakers as the guy who was getting a lot of the open looks off of LeBron James drive and kick situations. Won a championship with the Nuggets. Same situation. When Jamal Murray and Jokic went to their pick and roll, Michael Porter was on one end, Aaron Gordon was at the dunker spot. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was the guy getting the three-pointers, and he was knocking them down. Over Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's career, he's been a very consistent three-point shooter in addition to what he's done on the defensive end. If you take out last season, we're going to focus on last season a little bit here, so just bear with me. But if you take out last season, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope had 5 consecutive seasons shooting at least 38% from three-point range. 5 consecutive seasons, at least 38% from three-point range. Going back to last season. If you go back to last season, you look at that number, you're like, uh-oh. Here's that drop-off. This guy been in the league a while. 12-plus seasons in the NBA. Oh, he's about to fall off. You saw a guy that shot 34% from three-point range. But look a little deeper. Look a little deeper. Because you also saw a guy, March and April, was one of the best shooters in the NBA. 52% three-point shooter in March. 45% three-point shooter in April. Small sample size in April, but still, I think it was about 6-7 games. 45% three-point shooter. The point here is the end of the season, the last couple months, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope showed you that, hey, I can still, you leave me open, I can still make a team pay. I can still knock down three-point shots. And I think, with his playoff, with his playoff history, with the longevity that he's placed, I'm going to put him at number 3. Number 4 on this list is going to be Jalen Wells for me. Jalen Wells' season actually was pretty much the opposite of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's. Because if you look at Jalen Wells' overall three-point shooting numbers, you're like, man, I felt like he shot better than that. Jalen Wells only shot a little shade over 35% from three-point range. That's it. And you're like, it's roughly around league average. Jalen Wells was pretty much a league average three-point shooter last season. But when you go a little bit further, in the first 4 months of the NBA season, Jalen Wells shot over 37% from three-point range in 3 of those months. First 4 months, you go to October, November, December, January. 3 of those months, Jalen Wells shot above 37% from three-point range. Above 37% is really good, especially for a rookie. But when you go to February, when you go to March, when you go to April, it wasn't good for Jalen Wells. It was like if it was like a graph, if he was going up, it just plateaued down. And Jalen Wells he knows this, right? Like we're talking about 20, I think it was 20, shot 25%, 27% from three-point range last month of the season. 32% in February, and March and April both shot below 30% from three-point range. So with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, you had a guy who finished strong. With Jalen Wells, you had a guy who fell off towards the end of the season. But with both players, you have guys who, one, are going to be needed to knock down shots because these are the guys who's going to be probably in the opening starting lineup when you got Ja Morant out there and you got, Ja Morant driving downhill. He's going to have Jalen Wells on one side. He's going to have Kentavious Caldwell-Pope on the other. At least one of them is needed to have a rebound year. You can't have, at the end of this season, you can't have Jalen Wells shooting 35%, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope shooting 34%. The Grizzlies, look, listen to me. If Kentavious Caldwell-Pope ends this season shooting 34% from three-point range and Jalen Wells ends this season shooting 35% from three-point range and they're both starters, the Grizzlies won't make it very far. It's not really some breaking news thing to say or anything. It's not even a hot take or whatever. It's just the truth. They need to be really good shooters. The Grizzlies are trusting them to be really solid shooters. One more guy that we're going to talk about before we go into our last segment, and that's the number 5 shooter. There's a bunch of names that I could have went with right here. And I edged this guy out over Scottie Pippen Jr. These Scottie Pippen Jr. is going to go on the best of the rest list, right? Because Scottie statistically was more accurate than this player and the guys that I've listed above. But with Santi Aldama, who's 5th on the list here, with Santi Aldama, you have a guy who at the end of the day has the volume and accuracy combination. And I'm valuing him a little bit more. And what I mean by that is Santi shot 5 3-point attempts per game last season. If you watch Santi Aldama, 3-point shooting, you know he's going to get them up. And this team needs that because there will be games where Ja Morant doesn't shoot a lot of 3-pointers. Jaren's going to get them up too, but Jaren, over the course of his career, hasn't been the most accurate. But with Santi, he hasn't been the most accurate over the course of his career either. But again, I always said it, even going back into last season, I said Santi's mechanics, his shooting stroke, I believe he's due. And what we saw last season was a guy who finally started to put it together while taking 5 3-point attempts per game, 36.8% from 3-point range, pretty much 37% 3-point shooter. And I said, there it is. Now he has to maintain that because he's going to get them up. Santi, if the Grizzlies are averaging, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 made 3-pointers per game, Santi Aldama is going to be a big part of that because he's probably going to have like 2 of them himself per game. Santi is a confident shooter. He's a streaky one, but he's very confident. He has good mechanics. And I put him at number 5. I edged him out over Scottie because Scottie might be the more accurate of the two, but Scottie's going to get downhill. Scottie has other avenues to his game. Santi has some other stuff to his game as well. But as we talked about previously, even when we were talking about the Eurobasket with Santi Aldama, you better believe he's going to get his 3-point shots up. Coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to talk about a few players on the team who we qualify as the best of the rest. Some players the Grizzlies might need to knock down some 3-point shots. Some players that we don't want to end the show going without mention. Let's talk about that coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies now, where we'll talk about the best of the rest. Who kind of classifies as the players that will shoot, the players that the Grizzlies need to shoot, the players you're just straight up hoping. Just hoping make more 3-point shots this season. This is a pretty easy list. I think we can start with the 2 stars. We can start with Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. I want to start with Ja Morant first because Ja Morant's going to shoot the basketball, and Ja Morant's going to have those stretches. We saw it pretty much to close out the season where he shot really well from 3-point range. Now, this is not unfamiliar territory. We've seen it. It was a couple years ago where Ja Morant opened the season and he was knocking down 3-pointers, and people said, uh-oh, he figured it out. And then the season went on and on and on, and then you started to see 32, 33% from 3-point range, and you're like, still not a strength. Still not a strength. Now, with that being said, Ja Morant's going to have games, but why not get a career year from Ja Morant as a 3-point shooter? That is something that the Grizzlies would appreciate. It's a guy who has never shot league average from 3-point range. And he's one of the best drivers in the league. He's going to be terrific with his drive and kick opportunities, with his playmaking. This is the area of Ja Morant's game that most people would say classifies as his weakest, at least on the offensive end. So it would do a lot for him, seeing him, I'd say, shoot 35% from 3-point range. I believe that Ja Morant can do that. He can shoot 35% from 3-point range. When it will happen, I don't know. But if it happens this season, that'll be really, really good for the Grizzlies. Then let's talk about Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren Jackson Jr. is another guy. Classify him as the best of the rest, right? Jaren's going to shoot it, though. Jaren is going to get his 3-pointers up. He's going to have those games. We've seen it where he shoots 7 of 10 from 3-point range. It feels like he can't miss. Then he's going to have those games where a lot of you are complaining and saying, Jaren, just get to the hoop. You're 6'10", 6'11", 7-foot guy. You got, this 6'5" dude guarding you and you're shooting 3-pointers over him. And it gets frustrating. It gets frustrating. Let's just keep it real. That's what we do on Lock on Grizzlies. But he's another guy who I deem as a streaky shooter. Jaren has had actually a really good 3-point shooting season in his career. But that's the thing. I said a really good 3-point shooting team because the history, especially over the last couple seasons, Jaren has kind of trended down in that area. And he's another guy. Can he get to league average? Can he be above 35% from 3-point range? He does that. It does wonders for this team, at least between the two of these guys. You need one of them to shoot a little bit better, right? It would definitely be a lot for the Grizzlies. A couple other guys that I want to mention in this episode is we're not really talking about the rookies yet. The rookies, the shooting will take care of itself with Cedric Coward, Javon Small when they play, whatever the case may be. A couple guys that I want to just touch on really briefly. Gigi Jackson is one of them. Gigi Jackson, you remember it was a couple years ago, he was working with Anthony Carter, changed some things mechanically, put more arc on his 3-point shot, and did some things. And then the next season, he wasn't working with Anthony Carter as much. And you saw some subtle changes, so to speak. But at the end of the day, Gigi Jackson, as big as he is, as talented as he is, as much of a creator as he is, you need him to be, around a league average 3-point shooter as well. And then there's Vince Williams Jr. Vince Williams Jr. is a guy I would have had on this list last season. Before last season, Vince Williams Jr. was showing knockdown 3-point shooter ability. He was showing a guy that could be a 38% 3-point shooter in the NBA, which is really good. It's above league average and probably a shade under the elite category. That puts you in a pretty good category. But Vince Williams showed that. Then this past season happened, the injuries, right? We talked about the foot surgery. Then he had, the grade 3 ankle sprain. And then we talked about the idea that Vince Williams was never 100% over the course of the rest of the season. And with all that being said, it affected all these areas of his game, and shooting was one. Shooting was one of those areas where when you talk about what happened to Vince Williams Jr. This past season, his shooting fell off. And if he goes back to being that shooter he was a couple years ago, that's great because he was a top 5 shooter on the Grizzlies. But if he doesn't, then we got to question, his standing on this roster. 2 seasons ago, right? You go back to that season on 4 3-point attempts per game. Vince Williams shot 37.8%. He was a 38% 3-point shooter. 4 attempts per game. This past season, 3.5 attempts per game. So just a little bit less on the attempts. 27.4%. We just saw a player go 10 percentage points down from 3-point range. That hardly ever happens, especially on the volume that he was shooting it at. But at the same time, as we just talked about, the injuries were there for Vince and all that. If you go the long history, right, where he shot it in the way he shot it in college, the way he shot it in G League, the way he shot it, in that sample size of his first season where he got real playing time with the Grizzlies, his second season overall, he has the making of a really good shooter. And I think between him and Gigi Jackson, you need one of those guys to really have a strong shooting year. Let me know what you guys think about the names that I've talked about, the top 5 shooters on the Grizzlies, also the best of the rest. There are a bunch of other names that we could talk about. Again, I mentioned Scottie Pippen Jr. Scottie Pippen Jr. to me was right shade behind Santi Aldama, as number 6, but you can't go wrong either way there. Let me know what you guys think. Maybe you're saying somebody else will be in the top 5. Maybe you're saying Damichael Cole. Throw Cedric Coward in the top 5. We've seen him. We've seen people talk about how he shoots the basketball. We've seen him talk about how he shoots the basketball. But for right now, that's my list, and I'm sticking to it for the time being. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies on today. Remember, the Locked On NBA Top 100 is here. Voted on by the NBA hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Our top 100 was formed by experts that cover these teams and players every day. Find the full Locked On Sports today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't miss my reaction, as I've said, as we have in previous shows. Joe Monek's reaction. He's went in, and we can talk about the Locked On NBA list a little bit more going forward. So make sure you stay tuned for that as well. But until then, thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies each and every single day. Remember that Locked On Grizzlies is free and available wherever you get your podcast. I'm Damichael Cole, and we'll see you on Locked On Grizzlies.